Hello and welcome everyone, Jamie X66 here with a what I've been playing, which is actually, I don't think I've done one of these in a couple of weeks now, probably a couple of months, but I finally found some time. I'm going to try and start getting these out weekly now. I'm not doing Game of Thrones reviews anymore, that's all done, so let's focus on the gaming side. So today I wanted to talk about two games. The majority of it I'm going to be talking about Days Gone, which I recently posted my review about 2 days ago. I will link that in the description. So non-spoilery, just going to talk about some of the points I liked, some of the points I didn't like, and just emphasize that this really is a strong, great game. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I don't think it's even close to as bad as a lot of outlets are saying it is. In my opinion, I really had a great time with Days Gone. As I said, I don't think it's a perfect game. I probably don't think it's on the level of, say, a Horizon or a God of War, but we're talking about those two games in particular being some of the best of the generation, probably possibly of all time as well, and probably not on the level of Spider-Man either, but it's around that solid 8 out of 10 range. It's a fun open world exclusive that I think deserves to be played. Now, I noted this in the review, Days Gone, for the majority of it, doesn't reinvent the wheel of the open world genre. It plays it kind of safe in most regards. You've got encampments, which are essentially outposts from Far Cry. You've got an ability which sort of slows down time a little bit, which is very similar to sort of the Deadeye and Red Dead Redemption. And you've got the ability to sort of see around you, track things, very similar to sort of Witcher 3 or even The Last of Us. So it's clearly inspired by a lot of other open world games, but it does everything really well. And one of the aspects that really sets it apart in terms of the open world is that you actually genuinely get that intimidating horror vibe when you're facing off against the freakers, especially the massive hordes. And I said this in my review, if you're able to experience this, you definitely should. And it's really easy to recommend Days Gone on the hordes alone. Now, the first few hordes you face, you're maybe facing off about 50, 100 freakers, and after a few I was like, this is pretty easy, I can manage this. There's a lot of hordes within the game, but the later ones that you usually try to tackle post-game is probably the best time to do it. Can be about 500 freakers, and even if you set up traps, if you set up sort of distractions and everything like that, you're going to have to use a lot of sort of intuition and forward thinking to plan ahead to try and kill these freakers. It is insane when you go up to a cave, they're all hibernating, you throw in, say, a distractor, which brings them up, it wakes them up and brings them out, and you sort of throw a few grenades in, and you start just, I'm gonna just take a few out. Then you see the horde, and it's like a wave, like World War Z sort of zombies, just a wave of freakers coming at you, and it's genuinely goosebump inducing, and it's really intense, and I really enjoyed these. For the most part, I did most of them in the post game, so I was already sort of leveled up, had the better weapons and everything like that, but it made it a lot of fun to get to the post game. So that was probably one of my favorite aspects of Days Gone. But for those who love a good story, you get that here. I said in my review, I think Deacon St. John is one of the most endearing, complex characters that I have actually played with in recent memory. Yeah, he definitely is. The more I think about it, I can't think of any sort of newer characters. Maybe Aloy is another sort of strong contender, but in terms of just new, strong, complex characters in terms of gaming franchises, I think Deacon is fantastic. At first, I was streaming Days Gone. At first, I was like, I don't understand. He's not that likable. I hope there's a little bit more to flesh out the character, some more sort of flashbacks, because you don't really get too much. You're sort of thrown into the deep end with Deacon right away, which is sort of the opposite of The Last of Us in that regard, where, The Last of Us, you have that sort of ability to see Joel before the events, see what happens with his daughter, and see their transformation. Here, you sort of don't get that, not right away and not initially. You do get flashbacks of Deacon and his relationship with his wife, Sarah, and these are fantastic. You really find that Deacon is a character who's lost everything. He really risks his life all the time because I think deep down he doesn't want to keep living. The only thing keeping him alive is his best mate and fellow biker gang member, Boozer. So he really has this sort of shield up with everyone. He's risking his life constantly. He doesn't seem to care if he's going to die. Essentially doesn't show anyone affection. He just is completely closed off. But there's, like I said, there's tender scenes where you will be with Deacon and he'll go visit his wife's grave, and he'll sort of open up and have these sort of monologues of what's been happening and letting Sarah know. And it's brilliant. It really is. And when you flash back to see the connection he had with his wife in these scenes, you see that Deacon, who he is now, and what you've seen, that he may be a loose cannon and everything now, he wasn't like that. And it's really well done. And I'd have to say that sort of quality goes among the entire cast of characters. It's some of the best that I've experienced in a long time. Now, as for the overall story, there's a lot of times in the game where it's very similar to sort of your Walking Dead aspect, where you will be spending most of the time trying to survive, moving from area to area, meeting new characters, new camps. But the overall story is really good. I really did enjoy the story. I will say it's an extremely long game. I'd say maybe about 50, 60 hours. In that, there's probably about 10 or 15 hours that could have been cut. There's a lot of filler missions, and in the final act, there's a big section where the game doesn't even try to hide it. It's like, do these fetch quests, and they go for a long time. I'm talking 2-3 hours, maybe more, that you're doing fetch quests before they start giving you sort of other missions alongside the fetch quest. So it's a little bit of annoying there, and after the second act, I was completely like blown away with Days Gone. I was loving what it was doing, and then it really sort of took a nosedive and a sluggish sort of momentum killing for those couple of hours with the fetch quest. But that's just my opinion. In terms of Days Gone as well, in terms of the initial start, I can understand how some people may be put off, and I don't know if maybe that did affect some of the review scores. It is a sluggish slog at the start, because like I said, you don't have that connection with Deacon, your bike's really underleveled, underpowered, you're constantly looking for fuel, and you really haven't opened up the greater sections of the game. So once you get past that initial, say maybe 5-10 hours, it does turn into a really fantastic experience. I have to give a big props to the soundtrack. The soundtrack in this game is top notch. It's really fantastic. The audio design really sort of gives Days Gone a unique identity, and there's songs that I keep listening to on YouTube from the soundtrack, which are just beautiful. They're absolutely fantastic. There's a few scenes similar to Red Dead Redemption 2, where you're moving to a new area, and maybe this is a sort of epic track will just go over the top of everything and really emphasize what's just happened. So I love those moments in Days Gone. I'd say that tackles most of the main points of Days Gone. Like I said, I gave it an 8. I really liked this game. I thought it was great. I'm really looking forward to seeing if there is potentially a Days Gone 2 in the future, because I think the foundations here are very strong. I've said about a few PlayStation exclusives before, like The Order being another one, where that was a really interesting world, and I think if they did a sequel, they could really build upon it and flesh it out very well. Now, I think Days Gone is the exact same thing. I think now that they've done this sort of safe entry, they've got the characters, they've got the story, they've got the setting, now let's go full out. And there's a few sort of story threads that sort of tease that we could potentially be seeing more of the game. So I really hope that we do. It's a really strong game, and I completely recommend it if you're able to check it out. As for the second game I've been playing, I finished Days Gone, and I randomly had the urge to play a sporting game. So I looked through all my collection, couldn't find too many. I don't play too many sporting games, but I have found NBA 2K16, so a few years old, this one. But I started going through it and going through the career mode. Now, this was the game that had Spike Lee doing the story. What a slog that story was. Honestly, it was some of the most self-indulgent narrative I've ever seen. It was completely predictable. Some of the worst dialogue, some of the worst characters, and the ending scene, I swear, went for about 15 minutes. I went and cooked something, I came back, and it was still going. And you just had no attachment to the characters. I really hated it. I don't really hate too much about games, but that I hated. Also, during that section, your created character doesn't get any experience. So when you eventually start your second year, sure, thankfully the story is really short. So when you start your second year, you actually just sort of really underpowered. So I think I'm about maybe 20 games into the second year of career mode, and I've only just got to about 67 in my stats, and we're still quite under-leveled for what we're playing as, which is a little bit of a shame. Because when you first start, you'll be playing in the high school, and then moving on to college. You sort of are quite overpowered. You feel really strong in terms of your playing ability compared to everyone else. Because I think everyone is under-leveled with you, but then when you get thrown into the NBA, you're just sort of like, whoa, I can't do anything. So it sort of really does make the initial few hours a complete slog. So I'm glad the story didn't go too long, because it was really off-putting. I was like, maybe I don't even want to do a second year after this. Now with NBA 2K16, all the servers are all shut down anyway, so there's no online. I'm just going to play through the career, see how we go, and I got recruited by the Sacramento Kings, so I'm playing with them at the moment. And yeah, I think we're having the occasional loss, but it's a lot of fun. The one thing I don't like is we'll be putting on a good show, be a tight contest, then they'll go and put my character on the bench. Then when I skip forward to actually go and watch and play again, we'll now be about 10 or so points down, which is frustrating, especially when you're facing those bigger teams. It's like the rest of the people on your team just can't keep up with what's happening, which is a shame, but my knowledge of the NBA is very, very noob level, so I'm not sure if the Sacramento Kings are actually that good or not. But I am enjoying it, so I'll be going through that. Now, in terms of what I've been playing next, I just installed CTR Crash Team Racing on my PS3 and my Vita, the original PS1 version. I'm going to be playing the hell out of that, working and sort of looking forward to Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. So that's probably the main thing I'm gonna be playing. I'm also sort of looking to do another review very soon, but nothing confirmed yet, so we'll see how that goes. I will be looking to stream some Dollhouse, which is a horror game that recently got released, and also Prey, which I've heard a lot of good things, so I'm looking forward to doing those on stream. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you have thought of Days Gone in the comments below. As always, feel free to like, subscribe if somehow my rambling tickles your fancy. I would love to see you in the next video, and make sure you keep on gaming.